welcome to Unit 4. We are going to be tackling fractions. So I'm at my table of contents. I'm going to take two spaces. The first space is going to be for my what is a fraction page. So I'm just going to write what is a, that pen is going out. What is a fraction? And that's going to be, I think, let's see, 52. So I'm going to glue that in there, and then what we're working on today is how to find equivalent fractions, so how to find two fractions that are equal. Okay, so I'm going to write equivalent fractions. And that will be on page 53.
Okay, so once you've glued this in, let's go over it really quickly. Tomorrow we're going to dive deeper into it. We have a fun song that goes along with this, but this is just a place where if you forget kind of any type of vocabulary that comes with a fraction, you can turn to this page really quick and refresh your head, okay? So we have, what is a fraction? A fraction is part of a whole. It is a number that expresses equal parts of a whole object or set of objects. So when you see some numbers that look like this, we call this a fraction. So you'll see we have this bar on top. That is what separates the part from the whole. So let's take a look at what that means. We have two parts of a fraction, right? You have a number on top and a number on bottom of this bar. That means something. All of these numbers mean something. They're not just stacked on each other for fun. So let's take a look. So on top, we have the numerator, which is how many fraction pieces you have. On the bottom, we have denominator. D is for down. So you can think, okay, denominator down, it's my lower one. The denominator is how many fraction pieces your whole is broken into. The fraction bar, which is right here, represents division, right? So it could be 1 divided by 2 is essentially what it represents. So let's take a look at this. Let's say that you have a fraction. Let's just do a bar. It's like a chocolate bar, right? Your denominator is how many fraction pieces your whole is broken into. This is my whole. I know that my whole is broken up into two pieces, right? My denominator is 2. It's how many my whole is broken into. We have 1, 2. The numerator, which is the number on top, so number on top, denominator on the bottom for down. The numerator is how many fraction pieces you have. So you have one of those. So it's what is being used. So if you had 0 over 2, none of these would be shaded. If you had 2 over 2, they would both be shaded. So the number on top is how much you have in your hand. The denominator on the bottom is how many pieces there are that are broken into. Okay? So some key words that we're going to be looking at over this unit is things like halves, right? This is a half of something. Thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, sevenths, eighths, ninths, tenths, all that, okay? There are going to be different ways to represent a fraction, and we're going to be looking at that, but this is just a quick place to find everything, okay? So don't feel overwhelmed. This is really just everything you're going to learn in this unit, okay? So there's going to be a few different ways to represent a fraction if you wanted to draw one. You could do that it's a part of a group, right? You have 4 pieces, and you take 1. Okay, so you have 1 out of 4, 1/4. Or you could show it like this, right? You have a number line. You have a fourth, a fourth, a fourth, a fourth, and you shade just one of those because you only have 1. You could do a fraction bar, which is kind of like this, where you have a half and a half, right? So you have 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. You take the 1. Or you could do a fraction circle, where you circle, you divide into how many pieces your whole is broken into, which is your 4, and then you shade how many you have. Okay? So we're going to dive super deep into this unit, but I just wanted you to have a place where you could see everything in one place and turn to it when you need it. Okay? All right, let's get started. Okay, today we're going to be looking at equivalent fractions. So let's break that apart, but first let's do our objective. So today I can find equivalent fractions. Okay, really quickly. Equivalent, this word equivalent means equal. And you can kind of see they kind of have some of the same spelling, right? So we have equa here and equa here. So you can just think, okay, equal, equivalent, equal, they're the same, okay? So there are 3 ways to find equivalent or equal fractions. So we're going to be working with these for a few days, but I just want to show all 3 in the same place, okay? So first way or strategy to find an equivalent fraction, which you might like, is using an area model. So if they ask you to find an equivalent fraction of, let's say find 2 equivalent fractions for 3/4. Okay, so the question is always the same, right? But you as a student get to choose which strategies you want to use to tackle a problem. So we're going to go over 3 different kinds, and at the end of it you can kind of start to see what you feel comfortable using and choose that strategy and master that strategy, okay? So here's the first one we could do. We could do using an area model. So the first thing I can do once I get my problem of find 2 equivalent fractions for 3/4, I can draw a model of the fraction. Okay, so step 1, draw a model of the fraction. So just like we did in our notes, you can do a whole. How many parts is my whole broken into? 4. So I gotta do 1, 2, 3. How many pieces do I have? 3. So I'm gonna shade in 3. Okay, there's my fraction that they gave me. Step 2, draw the number of models needed under your fraction. And divide the same, okay? So first thing I'm going to do is draw 2 more models. I need 2, right? So I got to draw 2. Okay, so now that I've drawn the 2 that I need, I know I need 2 equivalent fractions. I already have this done. Now I need to divide the same. When I say divide the same, it means divide the same up here. So we divided it into 4 parts, right? So we gotta do that here as well. Okay. Okay, step 3. Divide extra model in half and shade. Okay, so here we go. Divide extra model in half and shade. So when I say divide extra model in half, you go to each block and you do that. You divide it in half. I'm gonna get a different color really quick. So I'm gonna divide this in half, this in half, this in half, this in half. and then shade. I'm shading the exact same, so I still need to shade 3 boxes. So I'm going to shade here, shade here, shade here. Okay, so here I have my extra model. Okay, step 4. Divide last model, which is here, in half again, and shade. So I divided this one in half, just like the other one, but now I need to do it again, so I'm going to do another line. Divide it in half again, and then shade again. So shade 1, shade 2, shade 3. Okay, now let's look at our fraction. So this first one, I have how many parts is my whole divided into? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's my denominator, down denominator. How many do I have? How many do I have? How many do I take? 1, 2, 3. That's my numerator. Okay, now let's look here. How many parts is my whole broken up into for my extra model? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 is my denominator, down denominator. How many parts do I have? Do I take? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's my first equivalent fraction. If you look, they are the same, right? They are equal, except this one is just a little bit greater. It's just broken up a little bit more, okay? Now let's look at my last model. I have, what's my denominator? My denominator is how many parts my whole is broken up into. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. How many do I have? Did I take? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so you can see that these are all equal. If you look, they are all shaded the same. The only thing that's different is that these are broken up into smaller pieces. Okay, so that's one way to find equivalent fractions. Let's look at another way that you might like more.